Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Chilson?
I see his picture.
I see him, didn't hear him though.
There he goes.
Councilmember Chilson? Okay, we see him. Councilmember Parker? Present. Hutchings?
Present.
Ruffridge?
Present.
Nelson?
Present.
Carey?
Here.
Student Representative Knowles?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Thank you, Ms. Hutchings. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Carey. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I have 2 separate motions. I would like to take them up individually. The first one is to move to add laydown resolution 2021-053, amending the city clerk job description to the regular agenda as agenda item 8B4.
May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Carey. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, it's added to the agenda. Your second motion?
The second motion is to add laydown action memorandum 2021-019, approving the timeline and hiring process for the Soldotna City Clerk to the regular agenda as agenda item 8C1.
May I have a second, please? Ms. Hutchings, thank you. Are there any objections to adding that item to the consent agenda, or to the agenda? Seeing none, that item is added to the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing none, will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Approval of the October 13th, 2021 council meeting minutes. New business ordinances, ordinance 2021-23, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $100,000 in the COVID-19 Relief Special Revenue Fund for grant funds provided by the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services, introduced by the city manager. Public hearing will be held on November 10th, 2021. New business resolutions, Resolution 2021-50, confirming the mayor's appointment of Councilmember Lisa Parker to the position of vice mayor, introduced by the mayor, and that is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand. If you would like to comment, app users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak on that, on the agenda or the consent agenda? Seeing none, I see no hands raised, so we will move on. Hearing no one else wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda, consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda and consent agenda is approved. Would City Clerk Sainer will now give the Vice Mayor Parker her oath of office. If she doesn't trip and fall first.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Lisa Parker,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the ordinances of the City of Soldotna,
and the ordinances of the City of Soldotna,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform and discharge my duties
perform and discharge my duties
as Vice Mayor
as Vice Mayor
to Congratulations. Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda is presentation with prior notice, the Visitor Center Quarterly Report by Shannon Davis, Executive Director of the Soldotna Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you so much. It's always great to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight. The last time I was with you was in August, and at that time I commented on how much busier it seemed to be in Soldotna at that time than it usually is that time of year. It's nice to be able to confirm that after talking with some of our businesses. Also, Andrew was kind enough to share some of his campground information with me. I won't get into all the details, but 2021 was a record year for our campgrounds. An interesting note is that it wasn't our highest year for peak season in July. The additional camp nights came from June, August, and September, which is what we really love to see. In addition, our second quarter sales tax numbers were phenomenal, up 13.5% over the same period in 2019. I looked back about 10 years to confirm, and we did set a new taxable sales record this year for second quarter, so I'm very eager to see our third quarter results. Lots of things worked in our favor for that to happen this year, including a phenomenal red year, but I would like to think the additional marketing had an impact as well. I note in my director's message we didn't hold very many chamber luncheons this summer for many reasons, but it was our pleasure to host a Soldotna City Council Forum on September 22nd. We appreciate the support we received from the Soldotna Sports Center, and thank you to those who participated. Very big congratulations to the winners, and I'd like to give a warm welcome to Mr. Nelson to the council. I very much look forward to working with you. So now as we get into some of the meat of the report, I've included our final visitor center counts. Even with as busy as Soldotna was this summer, we were still down in the visitor center about 27% from 2019. Now that's probably due in large part to the fact that we were not open on Sundays this summer due to staffing issues, and we closed at 6 rather than 7 every day. We are anticipating being completely back to normal next year. Moving on to our marketing, much of our large summer campaign has concluded, but we are in the process of updating our creative in the Anchorage and Kenai airports. Martin Media is still working on a few of our promotional videos, and we have just begun the process of redesigning the Soldotna Visitor Guide with a new designer. The 22 guide will have a cleaner, more cohesive look that complements our new website, and the new guide is scheduled to be delivered in mid-January. We are continuing to build our photo library. We had some amazing entries into our photo contest this year, which continues to help us build, as well as receiving a whole slew of new photos from Martin Media, who we contracted with again, and once again we will share those pictures with the city of Soldotna as well. After a pretty decent run of growth on our social channels, our numbers kind of plateaued a little bit over the last month and a half. We are still creeping up. Instagram was up 4%. Facebook and the Soldotna Chamber page were pretty flat. We are looking at working with Martin Media and also an Instagram influencer named Girl in Alaska, who is currently lives in Soldotna and is working with GCI to start pumping up those numbers over the winter. I will note it's not all about new followers. There's a screenshot here of one of our Facebook posts in my report that shows that this single post reached over 4,000 people and had 536 engagements. So it is about continuing that relationship with the customers that we already have as well. One of the big projects we undertook this summer in conjunction with the marketing dollars the city invested was a content build-out with alaska.org. So that has been completed, and we're really thrilled with the results. You can visit the URL that's listed in the report here, and all of the new content is listed underneath. Everything from itineraries, blogs with points of interest, including the Homestead Museum, a lot of new content about the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge. There's just some really great nuggets here that we will be able to utilize in our own marketing, and it's also all on alaska.org, which is one of the premier planning websites for the state of Alaska. We also had a few little highlights of a couple locals, Soldotna locals, including Caitlin Bodla and Joel Todd. If you get a chance, you should log onto the website and read those. It's really great. We also interviewed Bunny Swan, and she's highlighted on there as well. Our new website is actually performing quite well. Our users are up 25% over the same period last year. Our page views are up 64%. Some of that was due to the additional marketing that we had because our organic acquisitions did actually fall 14%, but that is very common when you launch a new site. Those numbers are going to rebound and grow as Google re-indexes our pages, and that takes a while. It'll be happening throughout the winter. We did have some great events over the summer. In the last quarter, we were thrilled to be able to bring Progress Days back. We did re-envision it a little bit with a 3-day event kicking off on Thursday. We partnered with the food bank, and it was a phenomenal day for them. They not only did the staff just really enjoy being able to be out in the community, interacting with people in Soldotna Creek Park, but they were able to gather 2 tons of food. They had a concert in the park that night that we helped them facilitate with Hobo Jim. There were about 1,000 people there. We have phenomenal pictures and phenomenal memories, and we are so grateful that we got to spend that time with him in Soldotna one last time in 2020. He is featured, 2022, he's featured on the cover of this report. That picture was actually taken on Saturday at the free concert that he gave for kids that day. He was on the stage right next to the City of Soldotna booth. The city and the city council hosted, handing out toys for kids. They gave out some prizes, as well as sponsoring the awards for the parade. And I'd just like to really thank the city for their support. And I hope that you enjoyed Hobo Jim this summer as much as we did. The Levitt Amp Soldotna Music Series concluded the last Wednesday in August. Despite terrible weather, we still had really great turnout all summer long. And I think that I just grow to love this more and more as I witness in person how it brings our community together in the center of our town. And we have grandmas, we have young children, we have teenagers, we have all different denominations gathered together in the heart of Soldotna, and everybody feels welcome, everybody feels included, and everybody feels represented. And I just have to continue to sing the praises of the Parks and Rec Department who assist us in putting this event on, and to the City of Soldotna for supporting it. We are guaranteed the Levitt Grant for 2022, and we are already in the planning process. Let's see, upcoming, we have our Spark Soldotna Business Scholarship. We will be giving out $4,000 on November 12th at the Lone Moose Lodge on Funny River. We received 12 applications, and those are being reviewed now by our local sharks, and we will be having live presentations at the November 12th event, and tickets will go on sale for that next week. We are planning our Christmas in the Park. We're going to kind of increase our efforts with that program this year. We haven't given it as much love as it should have had the last couple years, so we're planning some fun things with that, including some activities for the kids, as well as giving out small gifts and creating a decorated stage that we can bring Santa to have pictures taken. And then, of course, we are ready and able to stand up the Shop Local program immediately if the council decides that they would like to move forward with that. And we are super excited about about another great season for Christmas because of your support. And with that, I'm open to taking any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? Mr. Carey?
They often talk about a stool that has 3 legs. I'd say Soldotna is we have 4 legs. We have certainly the geography, the river and all things here. We have the government, we have the residents, and then we have the chamber. I just want to say how much you add to what we're able to do, and you focus on what's really important. And it's just, it is so nice this city, again, all those different parts are together. And without the leadership that you and your staff provide, we couldn't do it. So I just want to say thank you, Chamber, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Councilmember Carey.
Mr. Ruffridge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to echo the words of Councilmember Carey. Certainly growing up in this area, things have changed dramatically over the course of the last decade or so, and for the better for the most part. And many of those things are due to the efforts of the Soldotna Chamber and our local officials putting effort into making Soldotna a fun place and a place to raise a family. And I really appreciate all your efforts. And this last 2 years hasn't been easy to put together things that bring people together. And you found out a way this summer, and I appreciate those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Ruffridge.
Any other comments? Mr. Nelson?
And thank you very much for the report. I'm glad to hear that things like the campgrounds and some of these other facilities were very busy past our peak month of July. I'm just curious, do you have any idea of data as far as our visitors and things, how many were in-state versus out-of-state visitors? Do you have any data available on that by chance?
We haven't seen any official reports. I can say anecdotally that we had a huge influx of Anchorage visitors this year, which is, we were marketing to them for one. They have seemed to discover the Kenai Peninsula. For 2, they wanted to come down and escape the city. And they are our neighbors, and really they're our low-hanging fruit. We should be marketing to them to bring them to our area.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Vice Mayor Parker?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Shannon, for the report. I was talking with someone today who is not a resident of Soldotna, but lives here on the Central Peninsula, and they had to commend Soldotna for all of the activities that we do, and we wouldn't be doing those activities if it wasn't for Soldotna Chamber and our Parks and Rec group working together to provide that. So it was nice to hear, and to get those kudos that Soldotna does do some things right.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. It is absolutely a joint effort.
Ms. Hutchings?
And Shannon, I'd like to thank you and your staff. They have done an incredible job. And like you said, in the rain, but it still kept trucking along. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Hutchins.
And I see no other comments, and I would like to thank you and your staff for everything you do. You do a great deal for our community, and it's a great job, and we appreciate it very much, and I know our community appreciates it very much.
I appreciate that,
Thank you.
Mayor, and right back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Streamwatch Report, Galen Hetch, Streamwatch and Media Coordinator for the Kenai Watershed Forum, and Streamwatch volunteers Kathy Hendel and Sally Tachek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Really appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening. Also want to thank the Kenai Watershed Forum Executive Director Brandon Borneman for coming tonight, and our 2 volunteers here, Sally and Kathy, who will say a few words during the presentation. I think you all have this in your packet, so I will provide page numbers. We can just get right into it. Oh, yes, Mr.
I
Mayor.
do not believe we have it in our packet.
You don't?
No. I can't hear it.
It was an additional download that was sent out along with the packet links, as well as it's available on our live stream as a link.
I'll just provide my copy to the table. Oh, it looks like there's one there.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilmember Ruffridge.
Apologies for the confusion there. I'll do my best to just say everything verbally so that we can all be on the same page. So Kenai Peninsula Streamwatch is a program that was founded by a group of citizen volunteers in 1994. It started up on the Russian River as a response to some locals wanting to do river stewardship projects as recreational fishing was really, really taking off in the second half of the 20th century in the region. And of course, you know, the Kenai River, the Russian River are beloved, and folks wanted to work with agencies to take care of these places that are so important to us. The program expanded to the lower river and to Soldotna in 2011 as Kenai Watershed Forum came on to co-administer the program with U.S. Forest Service and various other partners. And I'm here tonight because City of Soldotna is a great partner with the program. We really appreciate working with you all and working in Soldotna. And I just wanted to provide an update on some of the stewardship and outreach efforts by volunteers in the community here. So as I mentioned, it's Streamwatch is operated in this area out of Kenai Watershed Forum. We do stewardship primarily in Centennial Park. It's one of our major sites where we actually have a cache of equipment for volunteers to use, and we're there on a very regular basis. But we, throughout the year, will work in Soldotna Creek Park, which is actually where our office is located, as well as Swiftwater Park and other sites doing stewardship projects. We love it when our partners, like the city, reach out and have needs, and working with Andrew and Joel and Parks and Rec is really great because we feel like we can really get a lot done through those collaborations. The partners of the program include Kenai Watershed Forum, U.S. Forest Service, City of Soldotna, Alaska Department of Natural Resources, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Alaska State Parks, and the City of Kenai. So lots of local names. We really, really do our best to collaborate broadly, and part of this update today is in hopes of many future collaborations with the city. To give you an idea of the impact that Streamwatch has had over the past 27 years, volunteers have served over 23,000 hours with the program. That's donated time, energy, expertise. Many of our volunteers, like Kathy and Sally, have had really amazing careers and experience in this community, and they bring that to the program, and it's just wonderful to see that level of commitment. 68,000 plus members of the public have experienced outreach through the program. That looks like peer-to-peer education about ethical angling, how salmon life cycles work, what important salmon habitat looks like, which is just really important when we have such an influx of people using the rivers here. Those little gestures of education from folks who live here can really be helpful. 36,000 pounds, over 18 metric tons of fish and wildlife endangering litter have been removed from habitat through this program. That's just an astonishing number to me. A lot of that stuff is small, chip bags, things like that, cigarette butts, and that's just, it's so much time and dedication to go into these delicate areas and really do that on-the-ground stewardship. And that's not to mention 889 pounds of fishing line recycled. That's just monofilament, which weighs almost nothing. So it's like 889 pounds of feathers that we actually recycle through the program that becomes boardwalk and other materials at the recycling facilities where we send it. And that there's a graph on the sheet if you're able to see it. If you're not, that's fine. But it just shows that Streamwatch volunteer hours have been steadily increasing since we started collecting data in 1998. And this was our best year ever. And it's just wonderful to see that kind of impact increasing through a community volunteer program. I just want to get right to it and let Sally and Kathy say a few words about their experience before I close out the presentation. So there's a photo of Sally and her partner with Streamwatch, Kay, who who has been with the program. Sally just told me since it started 27 years ago, and Sally's been with the program for quite a while as an ambassador. These are volunteers that come back year after year and just are amazing. So I'll turn it over to you, Sally, and you can say a few words.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to present tonight. We, Kay, my Streamwatch partner, and I like to get out early in the spring and do clean up along the Kenai River at Centennial Park because the river is low at that point, and so all the snags are exposed, and we can collect a lot of line and filament and weights and hooks and everything. For us, it's just a real joy to meet once a week. We do it early in the morning, and it's just a nice stroll through the park, and we end up with a few bags of trash along with it. So.
And we also have Kathy Hendel with us, who has been volunteering in many capacities. And Kathy, do you want to say a few words as well?
Sure.
Good evening. As I say, I'm Kathy, and I've been a Streamwatch ambassador for more than 10 years. I got a sort of a date on it, what they say, more than 10 years. It's been a generous opportunity to be able to have this program being a valuable opportunity for both the present and the future generations. There are numerous opportunities to educate the patrons, protect the environment, fish habitat, and then along with recycling the fish line, and finally having the opportunity to meet numerous people. In my experience, it has been a wonderful way to give back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you, Sally and Kathy, for your service with the program. And I'd like to recognize all the volunteers. We had 58 trained ambassadors, or what we call trained volunteers with the program, and 140 volunteers total with the program this year. So it was quite an amazing group of people. Among the projects that volunteers complete in the area, we put up temporary habitat fencing to protect that delicate vegetation that grows right along the bank of the river. Baby salmon spend over 90% of their life within 6 feet of the riverbank, so that habitat is just totally vital to the species that make the rivers here so unbelievably special. So we put up that fencing, we maintain it, we take it down, we install signage in those areas. And we really try to focus on protecting that extremely delicate habitat and preventing erosion there. We've also done projects in the city of Soldotna doing spruce bank revetments, helping various agencies with those. Hopefully we have some more of those brewing next year. And we do things like put up signage, have outreach booths. Of course, through Kenai River Festival, we reach a lot of folks and try to provide education through that incredible event. And in Soldotna alone, since 2016, this is 6 years of data, we've had 918 volunteer hours served with the program, 2,500 people have been reached, 750 pounds of trash have been removed. That's pretty much just from Centennial Park, walking along the boardwalks. 183 pounds of line have been recycled, and 6,253 cigarette butts have been picked up. And that's just a small fraction of how many I think actually get picked up by our volunteers. That's probably the most common item. But this is just to give you an idea of the program's impact so that you're aware of these volunteers, these folks going out in the community. We really look forward to a long and fruitful partnership with the city of Soldotna to help protect the river, provide access and educational opportunities for anglers and our local community, kids. Everybody here can be a part of Streamwatch in some capacity. And I thank you so much for the time.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're very pleased in this city because of our parks, the number that we have, more than any other city its size, and schools, we can say the same. For many of us who have gone through the schools here, one of the things we've talked about is vocational ed, and I just want to say, you guys are one of the very best educational institutions that is allowed and is flourishing. We can talk about the little kids in terms of primary school age. We can talk about secondary, high school, college, graduate school. You provide that hands-on data that people from all over can participate in. It's truly that vocational environment that all of us at different times, the volunteers that you have in your staff and just those different numbers. And so I just want to say I see you very much as one of our most important educational institutions, using Soldotna here as the center, and just all the many people that you touch and will continue to do. So, and I thank all of you and your volunteers and the work you do.
Thank you so much, Councilor Carey.
Mr. Chilson. We can't hear you, Mr. Chilson.
He was having microphone issues earlier. That's what I was going to do. I was going to call him.
Are you trying to call him?
I'm going to, yes.
Mr. Chilson, we're trying to call you right now by phone.
Even, really?
Technology, it's so great. Always works, never fails. It's like you're getting the wrong number.
No, that's the number.
You're dialing the 907 now.
I did.
And while we're doing that, I believe Ms. Knowles had some questions or comments.
Just a comment. I remember learning through these programs like this when I was younger in an elementary school, and how amazing that opportunity was. And I know that kids my age really appreciate that you're doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mr. Ruffridge.
Yeah, I just would like to say thank you as well for the work that you guys do, not just in our community, but just for the river and streams and waterways of the peninsula as a whole. And especially thank you to folks who volunteer time. I know it sounds like a fun stroll in a park, but it's work, and it's work that we very much appreciate. And it's very often goes unnoticed, so I'm glad that you're here today and letting us know what you do, and really appreciate your help.
I'm texting him to, yes.
Thank you, Councilor Ruffridge. Couldn't agree more. It's all about the volunteers.
Mr. Nelson.
And I also want to thank your more than 50 volunteers. It is very much a great effort. And one thing that I didn't realize that this program did was as much education and doing things like the fencing for the riparian habitat and some of that, which, again, all of those things put together really does improve the health of the streams. And of course, the presentation before you were talking about visitors and attracting people to our community. And of course, we know that the Kenai River is probably a very large part to why a lot of those folks come down. So thank you to all of the members of your program. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilor Nelson.
We're still trying to get a hold of Mr. Chilson. If I have him call my number, can we connect it? Mr. Chilson, if you can hear us, the city clerk is trying to text you right now.
No, he's answering my text, but the phone calls are not getting through.
We seem not to be able to connect to your telephone. It's like it's disconnected or something. Go ahead, Vice Mayor Parker.
I had a question for each of you. The first is for Galen. On slide 4, you show the partners. Association a partner in this program?
In this particular program, not at the moment. What I will say is that we work all the time with the recreational fishing community in the area. My job is not to manage the partnerships, but to contribute to them and try to maintain them and support our partners. So we largely work with government agencies that do land management directly with Streamwatch. And that's really largely our role, is to support those land managers and the anglers that are fishing in those areas as well.
Maybe it's an opportunity for them to partner in the future.
Yeah.
And then I had a question for Kathy and Sally. What has been the most interesting thing that you've collected over the years? That you can say publicly.
Oh, yeah. Gosh. I mean, there's just a myriad of things out there. Clothing articles are collected quite, I could outfit a small village with all the socks, sweatshirts, even jeans that, I don't know how people forget their clothes at the river, but and shoe, like one shoe or something.
I think Galen could mention that they found a boat down at the Casilla. It may not have been up here, but at least down at Casilla, they found a boat. I think I'll also add that one of the most interesting things I saw is a canoe floating down the river at Centennial, and then the excitement of the personnel, emergency personnel, and trying to locate the person that was in the canoe. Or kayak, it really was a kayak, so that was kind of my most interesting thing.
I believe we have a connection with Mr. Chilson.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Excellent. Apologies for all the delays with that. Definitely having some mic issues tonight. Anyway, I just wanted to add just a quick story. My first experience with Streamwatch was a number of years ago, and I got invited to go float the Kenai River, and of course that's exciting. Let's go do it. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to be picking up trash along the way. Well, all the better. And we ended up going and floating a good section of the river, stopping and pulling into some areas that are really remotely hard to get to. It was a great time, and I was really impressed by the dedication of the people there, just getting out and really getting at these areas that are just a really interesting logistical challenge to get in and get litter pulled out of. It was a great experience, great crew, and I'm really impressed with all they're able to do with keeping our river clean. And one question I would have is, how did you guys adapt to COVID and cleaning operations, general ongoings of the organization in the last 2 years?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Chilson. That's a great question. Fortunately, the program largely takes place outside. So even in 2020, we had a relatively robust program because folks could go out and still do a trash pickup with a member of their household or doing social distancing, and that worked out quite well. And then in 2021, the biggest adjustment we made was to our orientation. Typically, volunteers attend a full-day orientation sort of class with a group meal, and that just wasn't feasible this year. So we created an online course through our website that had videos and all the information that new and returning volunteers might need to get started with the program, and we're hoping to expand that and even do a couple more things with it next year because it worked out quite well. Yeah, so those were the big adaptations. Of course, we were doing social distancing and things where we needed to as well. So thanks for that question.
Glad to hear. Thank you for all the efforts.
Any other comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for all you do for our river and our community. So thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Moving along to item 5 on the agenda is public comments and presentations. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? For those
Yes, sir.
participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Jack Jensen. I own Alaska Bullion and Coin in the Peninsula Center Mall. I'm a small business owner in this town, and I'm also a veteran. I understand, Mr. Mayor, that you are also a veteran. Thank you for your service. Was there anybody else in here that was a veteran? One of the things that the mayor and I have in common was that we had to swear to an oath to protect and defend the United States Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. What this has to do with is the First Amendment. And we had a incident where we were told to remove a sign from the sports center, not only physically, but physically remove the entire sign from the sports center totally. I will tell you that at no time in my service did anybody have the authority to take away any of my constitutional rights. I don't recognize anybody here or any City of Soldotna employee to do that. At the same time, I mean, I don't know where this ends. Does it end if I decide to put an American flag in the support center? Is that going to be taken down? Anyone? Nobody's? Anyway, at the same time, last year, this council approved an organization that is a self-proclaimed Marxist organization that in their charter calls for the downfall of the United States of America. Now, that organization was able to have an assembly at Soldotna Creek Park. Yet we can't put a sign up in the sports center? I don't understand. I don't understand what it is. So I think that something ought to be done. I think that, you should have an investigation of who's responsible for this, who thinks that they can take my rights away from me as an American and a veteran, and also a small business owner in this town. I was very disappointed at that, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Anybody want to ask me anything?
Actually, I will ask the city manager to respond to that.
I don't have any questions for you, Jack. I will say that there are certain locations within our city facilities where free speech is open to the public and signage is allowed, and there are many other places where signage is not allowed. So in this instance, taping signs to the glass of the arena was a location where we had shared with that individual they would not be able to tape a sign, and that does not pose any concerns to me in terms of violating constitutional rights. In terms of taking the sign out of the building, I did have 2 conversations with the individual, and I support Andrew's decision to do that. After researching it further, I let him know that he would be allowed to carry that sign. So from my perspective, this item has been addressed.
Okay. I just, I understand that this is the private sector or public sector, and I just think that some responsibility should be taken. I don't take lightly that you can take people's rights. I don't. And I've worn a patch on my shoulder in foreign countries, an American flag, and you don't fight for your rights and then have them taken away. Okay? That's all I want to say. I made it less than 3 minutes. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
William Keller, and I reside at 35510 Bryan Street, which is outside of the city limits. However, we were the ones that brought the sign, had the sign made, brought it to the sports arena to support the same actions hundreds of thousands and millions of people across the country have been doing recently at sporting events and other revenues. Now, I did talk to the city manager, and when she called me back after finding out what the lawyers had to say, she thought that the actions that Andrew took that evening were right-headed. At least that's what she said. I didn't think it was it was something that sounded like she supported, that he had done that at the time. But hopefully that's not the case now, because it is a free speech issue. You know, people are not protected by the First Amendment to have their feelings. You know, they can understand it. Your feelings get hurt about it. I see a lot of things around Soldotna that irritate me, but I understand that's people's rights to do those things. You know, you're often not protected from being offended. There are two Americas right now that I see anyway. One is obsessed with mass vaccines, homosexuality, BLM, feminism, censorship, ending white privilege or ending whiteness and control over the others. The other side that I see in America right now is they're about family, community, freedom, God, and keeping people out of my own business. We have freedoms, we have liberty. We seem to be losing those quite quickly in the last 3 months, well, last 11 months, last year. Our freedoms keep going downhill, and you can see it across the country. What we see in Soldotna a lot of times is, well, okay, the BLM thing and whatever it was, gay pride, that's fine. They can do their thing, but it shouldn't be done on city property. That did irritate us there too as well. We all have rights. We all should understand that we have freedoms associated with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So we just ask that those freedoms be granted, especially to us, you know, not especially to us, to all Americans. You know, Jack and I both served in the military. I spent 20 years, and I'm not, you know, ready to give away my freedoms and my liberty. We've also got the right, I ran out of time there, but I appreciate your time, and hopefully we won't see this again. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Vice Mayor Parker. Just a moment, Mr. Park had a question. Comment.
I just was going to ask if you could conclude your comments, finish your comments.
Well, it pretty much was, but I just wanted to make sure that something like that doesn't come up again. It just doesn't sit well with us. Shouldn't sit well with any American to have their rights canceled and their liberties taken away. And the whole thing with the COVID deal, I mean, why? I understand the city of Soldotna got a lot of money from the federal government through the state. And it just seems that all these mandates are coming just so that you can get more money to spend on other things. I saw a lot of things spent in 2020 and 2021 that I hadn't seen in the 20 years we've lived around Soldotna. We saw these flowers go up on every corner, people out there watering them every day. We understand the flowers are very expensive because we used to keep a lot of them. You know, trees, beautification's great, you know, if you can afford it, but I'm just not sure where the money was coming from. And of course, even in tonight's agenda, there's money coming in from COVID, CARES Act money. How is it spent? Why is it, you know, everybody's still wearing masks in here when the COVID is 99.99% survivable. More people die than regular flu than COVID. And there is a lot more science out there coming out now that people are finally standing up and talking that issue down. Instead of being, you know, we're not shut down. We shouldn't be shut down just because of Just the things that are censored out there. Section 230 is keeping the big tech from getting sued for cutting off other people's rights and views, or being censored into the corner. Can't get the real information out. But you go to the right websites, you go to the right, well, you just do a lot of research on it, and you'll see there's people out there, very prominent surgeons and doctors, that talk about other treatments that are much more viable, and now they're going to vaccinate the kids. And that's a big mistake, not having gone through the testing that it would require to be. I can't believe anybody's standing for that. But our kids, we grew them correctly. They went in the military. Unfortunately, they had to get the shots. I just hope that they don't die from it. I do know quite a few people who have died right after getting it. So I don't know anybody in our family or our circles that died of COVID without having the shot. Go figure. I don't know. Natural immunity. Thank you again.
Thank you for your comments. I see one hand raised for Mr. Lee. Go ahead, Mr. Lee. You have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record. Are we having a problem on our end?
Apparently, Mayor Whitney, there's a problem with the audio coming in from Zoom. I can see his microphone moving, but no audio is coming out in there.
Mr. Lee, we seem to be having some technical difficulties on this end, and we're trying to find a solution.
I'm not technical enough to fix the Zoom audio issue at this time.
Would it be possible for you to send me a text message with your phone number to 907-395-7231? We just got disconnected completely.
We did lose all of our Zoom. So it's trying to restart. There we go. Yeah.
I don't see, oh, there's Mr. Lee again.
Mr. Lee, are you able to talk at this time? Mr. Lee, are you able to talk this time? Nope.
I'll try it again. If you can hear me, Mr. Lee, can you text me your phone number at 907-395-7231? And then we will call you from this end. suggestions?
Yeah.
Do you need this out? Can they try that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Now we can.
Okay, thank you. So I start with my name. My name is Hong Kin Lee. My address is 5700 West Trinity Avenue, Wasilla, Alaska, 99623. Okay, I'll start my 3 minutes. Good evening, everybody in Saldatna. Nice to meet you, and thank you for your service. And my name is Hong Ki Lee, and I'm running for United States Senate next year as an independent Alaskan. So I live in Wasilla in the Matsu Valley. Of course, I've been to Soldatna many times. One of my favorite vacation destination, and beautiful place and wonderful people. So yeah, this is how I do my campaign these days. I go to like local Zoom meetings all over Alaska. And I want to introduce myself and my campaign to Soldatna community. So thank you again and good evening. So well, my background a little bit. I used to be U.S. Army soldier, and I used to be computer programmer. And I'm right now on attorney in Wasilla, Alaska. And I came to Alaska like 6 years ago. Because I wanted to be a part of this wonderful adventure in Alaska. And so that's my background. And now let me introduce you some about my politics. So I'm running for US Senate next year as an independent. I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I'm kind of like half and half. I'm very ideologically mixed. Sometimes I agree with Democrats. Sometimes I agree with Republicans, depending on the issues. And so if I do get elected, I will take it as my mission to bring the left and the right together and start working on something very important and constructive. For example, in Alaska, we have a lot of resources. Like, it's quite controversial, I understand. Like Pebble Mine, they have gold and copper and molybdenum. In Enwa, in the Arctic region, we have oil and gas. So my suggestion is that I believe we can environmentally soundly develop those wonderful resources, and through good regulations, and also we have advanced technology to prevent any pollutions. So that will be my suggestion. And when it comes to global warming, well, there are a lot of concern about global warming. But I have science background and engineering background, and I believe I can convince the world that there's nothing to worry about global warming, okay? And of course, they will take more than 20 seconds of discussion. That's all I have left, 20 seconds. So, well, nice to meet you, and God bless Saldatna, Alaska. And thank you for giving me 3 minutes. And have a good evening, everybody. That's my 3 minutes. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I see no hands raised. Any other hands raised? Mr. Chilson, did you have any comment? Well, never mind.
No additional comments, Dad. Thank
Never
you.
mind. Seeing no other, one else here in the audience that wishes to speak, we will move on from public comments to item 6 on the agenda, Assembly and Legislative Report. Are there any representatives from the borough or the state in attendance who would like to speak? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Seeing no one here in the chambers and seeing no hands raised, we will move on to item 7, public hearings. First one will be Resolution 2021-049, authorizing the issuance of a letter of non-objection to the Marijuana Control Board for licensee renewal, Michael James Welsh, a retail marijuana store doing business as Cold Smoke, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to adopt? Thank you, Ms. Hudgens.
This is Jordan, I'll second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2021-049, authorizing the issuance of a letter of non-objection to the Marijuana Control Board for licensee renewal, Michael James Welch, a retail marijuana store, DBA Cold Smoke.
May I have a second?
This is Jordan, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. As is our standard process with these renewals, we route them through the different city departments. And with this business, it was reviewed by the Finance, Police, Public Works, and Planning departments, and no grounds for protest were identified, as well as we were notified by the Kenai Peninsula Borough that the business is in compliance with their sales tax. So therefore, per our process, we bring it forward for a public hearing, and the administration recommends do pass. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone in the audience here that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll move along. I see no hands raised. Hearing no one wishing to speak on the item, it's back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Councilmember Parker?
Yes.
Hutchings?
Yes.
Ruffridge?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Carey?
Yes?
Chilson?
Yes.
Student Representative Knowles?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
The resolution 2021-049 passes on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to item B, ordinance 2021-020, suspending restrictions on council attendance by teleconference is established in Sonata Municipal Code 2.04.01, paren E, introduced by Vice Mayor Parker. May I have a motion to enact? Vice Mayor Parker.
I would move to enact ordinance 2021-020.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ruffridge. Thank you. Report from Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. What this would do is we don't currently have an emergency declaration in Soldotna. However, as you can tell, if you look at the city, the borough's website, the tracking of COVID throughout the Kenai Peninsula, we are still at very, very high risk. Since we've suspended restrictions for attending by teleconference, I thought it would be prudent to extend this ordinance through June 30, 2022, which would allow council members, members of the public who were experiencing any symptoms to join the meeting remotely. And so that is why I'm introducing this ordinance.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Seeing no one here in the chambers wishing to speak, and seeing no hands raised, we're back before the council. Are there any council comments? Vice Mayor Parker.
Just to wrap up, we heard earlier today that from public comment that people had not seen people die from COVID, get sick. I've had friends die from COVID. I've had friends get sick. I've had friends who've been vaccinated get sick. I think we still need to continue to practice due diligence, and this is one area where we could do that as a member of the city.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Hutchings?
Yes.
Ruffridge?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Carey?
Yes.
Chilson?
Yes.
Parker? Yes. Student Representative Knowles?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
Ordinance 2021-020 passes on a 6-0 vote. We're going to move on to the next item under ordinances. That'd be ordinance 2021-021, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by an additional $583,000 in the general fund and the Soldotna Regional Sports Complex Capital Project Fund for the SRSC Major Maintenance and Renovation Project, introduced by City Manager. May I have a motion to enact? Ms. Hutchings.
I make a motion to enact ordinance 2021-021, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by the additional $583,000 in the grant general fund and the Soldotna Regional Sports Complex Capital Project Fund for the SRSC Major Maintenance and Renovation Project.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. There's quite a detailed memo in the packet from our project manager, CO, who works in the Public Works Department with Kyle, as well as Mr. Cornelis participating in drafting this memo that describes in detail kind of the history of this project. It was funded through the 5-year capital plan, and we went through some design work and professional cost estimating. And when we got those results back this April, you might remember, thinking about going to bid in the project, the cost was going to exceed the budget that we had anticipated based on those cost estimating. So at that time, we recommended that the council delay the project so that we could do some value engineering, and our team, both the Public Works Department and the Parks Department, really got to work sharpening our pencils and looking for ways to bring the cost of the project down. We accomplished several cost-saving measures. One was by identifying a different solution for the materials to be used in the mezzanine. That results in some significant cost savings. Also, by having a more favorable bidding environment, just by delaying the project, we expect to see some cost savings. We also looked at the scope of work and had recommended that the outside work, the civil work, potentially be bid as an additive alternate so that it was not essential and necessary to complete at the same time. If we went to bid and it was extremely favorable, we would have funds, we could proceed with that work, but it wouldn't have to be as part of the base bid. So we went through that process, and this ordinance is brought back before you seeking the additional funding that we feel is appropriate and necessary to finish that core scope of work that was identified, which includes new exterior doors, new shower and locker rooms, massive improvements to customer service area and the office area so that when people who are maybe not regular users of that facility will be able to navigate our Parks Department and interact with staff in a better way, as well as the mezzanine ceiling. One thing that we did add to the project, and really I was very supportive of this, was a new reader board sign. So during the course of this design work, the one half of the existing reader board sign has failed. That is very old technology. There is much newer technology that it will allow our Parks Department to communicate much better. And so we did have built into this cost estimate the pricing for a new reader board sign. The sign itself would match the gateway signs and some of the other park signage we put around town, and then the technology for the reader board would be current to date, good technology. Since drafting the memo, Mr. Cornelis brought a concern to me, and I'm glad he did, which is that within this cost estimate, there is only a 5% contingency built in. And although we have done our due diligence, we have a 95% design, we worked with professional cost estimators, we are still in a bidding environment where there seems to be much uncertainty. And so he and I, over the past week, had discussed coming to the council, asking the council to increase that contingency amount from 5% of the project total to 10% of the project total. That is important from our perspective because if we were to go out to bid and bidding was to come in above the 5% contingency amount, we would have the ability to come back to council and ask for additional funding, but that would delay the award of the contract, which CO, Kyle, Joel, Andrew have very delicately scheduled to avoid events and the users of that facility. So we feel that the 10% contingency is reasonable, and we would seek your support of an amendment to that effect tonight. Mr. Cornelis, Mr. Carmichael are here if the council has any questions about the project, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on the item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on ordinance 2021-021? Seeing none and looking at hands raised, I see no hands raised. No one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Is there a motion to amend as requested by the city administration?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would motion to amend ordinance 2021-021, increasing the appropriation amount by $89,000. This would increase the amount from $583,000 to $672,000 in the title, also in the 8th whereas clause, and throughout section 1.
May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hutchings. Are there any council comments on the agenda? Excuse me, on the amendment? Seeing none, hearing none, the amendment is approved. Are there any additional council comments? We will now vote on the ordinance 2021 as amended.
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes?
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker, Hutchings,
Yes.
Student Representative Knowles.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2021-021 passed on a 6-0 vote. We now move on to agenda item number 8, new business. And we have a resolution 2021-051 authorizing the city manager to apply for a $360,000 grant from the U.S. Economic Development Agency for planning and feasibility analysis related to the downtown riverfront redevelopment project, and expressing commitment to provide a local match of $90,000 with funds that were previously appropriated for the project, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to adopt? Ms. Hutchings.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-051, authorizing the city manager to apply for a $360,000 grant from the U.S. Economic Development Agency for the planning and feasibility analysis related to the downtown riverfront redevelopment project, and expressing commitment to provide a local match of $90,000 with funds that were previously appropriated for the project.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. A report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. You may recall this project was first identified by a stakeholder group in our 2015 downtown plan, and then it was further refined in our 2018 Riverfront Opportunities document that's included in the packet. The council had appropriated $90,000 for additional to take the next step of planning in this project, which seeks to work with private landowners who own land along the river and along the highway to provide the infrastructure and the circumstances that will support further development and infill development in that section of downtown. And we were made aware of a funding opportunity through the U.S. Economic Development Agency earlier this year. We've been meeting with Tim Dillon and his team at CAPED since February or March, specifically to talk about this project and how we can make it fit for potential funding through the EDA. We've spent 7 months and literally hundreds of hours refining what would be an application and working with both Tim and his crew, as well as Shirley Kelly, who's our regional coordinator with the EDA, and had just recently gotten to a point where she said it's ready to submit if the council wants us to move forward. The scope of work for the project, the total budget would be $450,000, of which the city has already appropriated $90,000, so we'd be seeking the $360,000 from the federal government through this program. The scope of work would allow us to do a very deep dive and detailed analysis on the feasibility of this project, which includes environmental work, market assessments, some conceptual design, some master planning, exploring funding opportunities. We would work with both the landowners as well as partner organizations and the general public to have a very good sense of whether downtown redevelopment is going to be in the community's best interest. It's an exciting project because it's a very effective economic development strategy that communities have employed throughout the United States, and we happen to have a phenomenal river running through our downtown that has not been utilized in this way in terms of bringing people to it and bringing a new Main Street to it. So I'm proud of the work our staff's done. We're excited potentially to move forward. Should the council approve this resolution, we would hit send tomorrow. And I know that Tim Dillon would have been here tonight. He's traveling. John Zarneski is also traveling. Coincidentally, they're both going to the Packers game tomorrow. But were they here, Tim would have wanted me to share with you, KPED is actually working with 27 different projects throughout the borough, both inside the incorporated cities and in the areas outside the cities. But this project is the first one that's ready, has gotten to this stage to submit. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on Resolution 2021-051? Seeing none, looking at the Zoom, there are no hands raised. This is the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, ma'am, in terms of what will be the finished document that we will receive, and particularly what I'm looking for is, and I'm hoping for, is a proactive document that allows us then to go out and do things as compared to a document which has lots of numbers and pictures and whatever, and it sits somewhere and maybe 10 years from now someone will do another one. And so I'm interested, so I support this very much, particularly federal money for a major part of it. But I'm interested in what do you anticipate will be the document that's handed to us as a result of this?
Thank you, Council Member Carey, through the mayor. I believe it'll be a series of deliverables. So some of them will be environmental reviews of certain sites. Part of what we seek through this project is to identify some catalyst development that could be located in this part of town to really drive momentum. So looking at environmental reports, those will be some of the deliverables. A market analysis will be a deliverable that looks at the competitiveness of our area, looks at our existing economy, where can existing parts of our economy be grown and strengthened, as well as are there gaps that, if they were located in our downtown, could help make us more robust and more resilient. So that market analysis would be one. In terms of the conceptual planning, I think that the public engagement, the conceptual planning, and then the eventual master planning will be a document that contains many of those things you described. So we want to help people imagine and visualize what this could be. And to date, the documents we have are fairly general. So it will bring us to a higher level of specificity in working with those landowners and the partners and the public. And I anticipate a document that is very actionable. This is a planning grant that we are seeking. The Economic Development Agency has construction grants, and should we get to the end of this planning and due diligence and feasibility phase, were it to suggest that this is a viable project, we would then be in a position to seek construction funds through this type of grant opportunity or others.
Follow-up?
Go ahead, Mr. Carey.
Would it be correct to assume then that the deliverables would provide then the possibility of us looking at, with all the different stakeholders and all the people interested, a much wider plan and program to then go out and initiate?
Mr. Carey, through the mayor, that's absolutely our intention, is to have the information in hand, the analysis, and a higher level of design that could then, if the council and the community supports moving forward, we would then be ready to move forward with implementation.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Mr. Chosen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to the administration, would you be able to provide a brief overview on the grant process timeline you would expect to see with this moving forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chilson. Through the mayor, I believe the review committee that reviews these types of application meets weekly. It's regional, meaning Alaska, Washington, Idaho, so they see a lot of applications. The reason that we've spent the last 7 months refining this idea and our project pitch is that we hope it positions us to be in a position to be reviewed favorably once it enters that process. So I do not believe that it will be several months. We were proposing in our application a start date of January. So I do think that depending on whether we submit this, if they can get this in their weekly review, I would hope that we would have some indication back within a matter of weeks, if not a month.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Queen and Mr. Zarneski, for all the work that you've done on this over the past few years. And since you both first started talking with me about the riverfront revitalization, it's something that I have strongly supported. And knowing that we're getting also support from the property owners that are adjacent and part of this revitalization, I see this as something that, I mean, it's going to take time, and some of the environmental work might take a little longer than what we would hope, but I see this as something that people in Anchorage are going to be coming down because they're going to be, we like this riverfront, and we like this little development and the cafes and the businesses that are set here in the city of Soldotna. So thank you for pursuing this.
Any other comments? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker, Hutchings,
Yes.
Ruffridge,
Yes.
Student Representative Knowles.
Yes.
We have 6 yes votes.
Resolution 2021-051 passed on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to next item is Resolution 2021-052, approving $350,000 from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Revenue Fund to provide a grant to the Soldotna Chamber of Commerce for Shop Local Economic Stimulus Program to benefit Soldotna small businesses harmed by the COVID-19 public health emergency, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to adopt?
Please.
Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the adoption of Resolution 2021-052, approving a $350,000 grant from the COVID-19 CARES Act Relief Special Fund to provide a grant to the Soldotna Chamber for a Shop Local Economic Stimulus Program.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffridge. A report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. If you recall, towards the very end of 2020, Congress extended the deadline for the CARES Act funds and their eligible use. And at that point, the city had not expended all of the grant funds. So we were in a position to reevaluate and come back to the council to come up with a plan on the best use of those funds through the remainder of 2021. The council adopted the final version of the CARES Act spending plan back in March. On March 10th was when the council adopted Resolution 2021-013, which gave us, the staff, the direction on how to carry out the remaining programs within the CARES Act funds. And one of those projects identified under Business Support and Economic Development was the Shop Local 2021 program. So we have moved forward with the different projects and programs identified in that spending plan. This is one of the last pieces of that program to go into effect. And we worked with the chamber who administered the Shop Local program last year. They were willing and ready to do the same again if the council supported funding the program a second time. I will say they really knocked it out of the park in terms of the administration of those funds and the strategic way they were put to use in the community. So we're thankful for that partnership. And the resolution before you is largely similar to what was approved before, where it would authorize us to execute a subrecipient agreement with the chamber specifically for the purpose of administering these funds in compliance with the CARES Act guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to speak or comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on item 2021-052? Seeing no one, we'll move on to seeing if there's any raised hands. And seeing no raised hands other than Mr. Chilson, we'll move on to the items back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Carey,
Yes?
Chilson,
Yes.
Parker, Hutchings,
Yes.
Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Student Representative Knowles.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
Resolution 2021-052 passes on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to the next item is Resolution 2021-053, amending the city clerk job description introduced by the mayor. May I have a motion to adopt? Vice Mayor Parker.
I move to adopt Resolution 2021-053.
May I have a second? Ms. Hutchings, thank you. Our report from the mayor, that being me. A couple of days ago, myself, Vice Mayor Parker, the city clerk, and the Human Rights Director got together and we spoke about refining the job description for the city clerk. And this was the option that we came up with, and we're presenting it to the council for approval now. And of course, it's available at this time for any other changes that the council may choose. And that's all. Vice Mayor Parker, would you like to add something to that?
No.
All right, are there any members from the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the chambers wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll look at the Zoom, and I see no hands raised. The item is now back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Councilmember Chilson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Student Representative Knowles.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
I guess I probably should have mentioned at the first of this, the reason we did this is the city clerk has submitted a resignation and moving on and upwards. Thank you.
I'd call that a lateral movement.
Being nice tonight.
That's lateral to Kenai.
We'll move on
Up
to the
would be
next item.
Anchorage.
Item C, under Other, is we have a laydown of Action Memorandum 2021-019, approving the timeline and hiring process for the Soldotna City Clerk, introduced by the mayor. May I have a motion to approve? Vice Mayor Parker.
I would move to approve Action Memorandum 2021-019.
May I have a second? Ms. Hutchings, thank you. Here again, same time, we sat down and tried to put together a timeline that would be compatible with everyone as to when we would do the interviews, applications received, and so forth and so on, and any negotiations that might have to take place with any selected individual for this position. So it is now, are there any council comments? Vice Mayor Parker.
I would add, myself, Councilmember Hutchings, and Councilmember Ruffridge will make up the review team. The close of the initial close of applications, while the application will remain open until the position is filled. The initial review will be done November 19th. The applications, if they are found to be qualified, will be forwarded to the 3 of us. We will then be meeting on the 30th of November, and we will coordinate with I'll coordinate with through the clerk with you as to what will be the best time to have a meeting to go through the applications, determine if there's applications that we want to forward to the city council. We would do that, and that would be done on the December 1st. We would present those to the city council, and we would have executive session to determine if there are individuals within that group of applicants that we want to interview. Those interviews would be conducted at a special meeting on December 6th. And hopefully at that meeting, we identify an individual to enter into contract negotiations with and provide a conditional offer, with having a offer and contract negotiations done before the December 15th meeting. So at that December 15th meeting, we would be able to then confirm the new Soldotna City Clerk. So it's kind of the timeline. If everything goes according to plan, but it's pandemic and COVID and things take different turns here and there, so we'll just have to be flexible, and we'll stick to the schedule, but also be flexible.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. Are there any objections to the salary ranges proposed?
Oh,
We haven't
I
had that
haven't.
motion yet.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I move to set the salary range for advertising the city clerk position at $88,566.40 to $114,504. And this is depending on experience, of course.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ruffridge, thank you. Are there any objections, or any discussion? Are there any objections to the salary range as proposed? Seeing none, the salary range is approved. Any other
Question?
discussion? Mr. Carey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering in terms of the timeline and the different applications, will all council members have access to all the applications?
Go ahead.
I would, the applications will go to the Human Resources Manager. She will then determine if the applicants are qualified for the position. So do you want to see every single application that gets submitted, even if they're not qualified?
My question is whether or not we would have access to them.
I would say, yes, you could have access.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I would just ask that any requests regarding this position to stay in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, please make your requests through either the Human Resources Manager or the clerk, who will then convey information on to either the mayor or myself.
The only comment I might add in here, unfortunately, I had already planned a vacation during this time frame, so I will not be available for some of these issues that come up in this timeline. And the December 1st meeting, I will not be here, but I will try to participate through Zoom if I can get a Zoom connection from where I'm at. Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember Parker?
Yes.
Hutchings?
Yes.
Ruffridge?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Carey?
Yes.
Chilson?
Yes.
Student Representative Knowles?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes.
All right, the timeline is passed on a 6-0 vote. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, mayor and council reports. I have a proclamation here to read, if I can find this. This is a proclamation I've issued. Whereas the United States is a beacon of hope, freedom, and opportunity to people around the world, and whereas the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who fight to defend our liberty embody courage, patriotism, and loyalty, and whereas throughout our nation's history, our military men and women have boldly answered the call of duty to defend our nation's independence and precious liberties, risking life and limb for their fellow Americans. And whereas Americans have remained at the vanguard in defending freedom around the world, and our service members, veterans, and their families continue to spearhead this noble undertaking. And whereas Americans' military men and women and their families are vital to the security and prosperity of our nation, we have a responsibility to protect and serve those who have made countless sacrifices for love of our country. As President Lincoln once said, honor to the soldier and sailor everywhere who bravely bears his country's cause. Honor also to the citizen who cares for his brother in the field and serves as best he can the same cause. And whereas we recognize the integral role of our military family members play in supporting our armed forces and contributing to their mission, while our men and women are serving at home or overseas, it is our duty to provide their families with the resources they need to thrive in our communities. And whereas each warrior who fights for our nation, along with their families, has earned our eternal gratitude, I ask the citizens of Soldotna to thank and support those brave heroes and their families. Now, therefore, I, Paul J. Whitney, Mayor of the City of Soldotna, do hereby proclaim November 2021 as Veterans and Military Families Month in the City of Soldotna, in honor and express deep appreciation for those brave men and women and their families. I encourage everyone to acknowledge and honor the service, sacrifices, and contributions of veterans and military families for what they have done and for what they do every day to support our great nation. Okay, a couple of things to bring up right now. The VA clinic is due to open, and they're looking at a opening date of either November 10th or November 17th. I will be available for the November 10th opening if that date is finally settled on. If not, I will be out of town on the November 17th, and I will be needing to ask one of you to represent the city at that opening ceremony. Next item I had was November 11th is Veterans Day, and there will be a unveiling of the plaque on the Iron Mike statue at the Soldotna Creek Park, and that will be at 4 o'clock on November 11th, Veterans Day. There will be, presently there's planned to be a group of young students from, I believe it's Kenai High School, that will have a choir and a group that plays instruments, and we'll probably be singing some patriotic songs and stuff during that opening or that unveiling of that plaque. So if you have the time, I certainly hope you would attend. And Mr. Carey.
Thank you, and I'd like to just, my understanding, the instruments would be at the VFW at the 5 o'clock activity there. That, again, particularly depending on the weather, instruments outside, and so that the whole, they have a presentation that's supposedly going to happen at 5, and we're hoping to bring a few of them over to sing at the 4. But definitely, I don't believe we'll have musical instruments there.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll have a choir there, and hopefully you'll be able to attend that ceremony. And that's all I have for tonight. Council reports on boards and commissions. Kenai River Special Management Area Board meeting. Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. It wasn't a super substantial meeting, but some of the topics that keep coming up are with relation, especially with the personal flotation devices uses on the river. And some of the aspects that were discussed in terms of that was with all the new types of watercrafts that are showing up on the river. First, it used to be only power boats and the occasional canoe. Now we've got kayaks, now we've got paddle boards, now we've got air mattresses, now we've got inflatable unicorns, ducks, and those type of things. So safety has been taking kind of a forefront in terms of that, with the board hoping to work with the Office of Boating Safety and moving forward with those. We did receive some reports from Colton Lipka regarding the fish returns, and that the sustainable escapement goal was not met for the king salmon on the late runs. It was barely made for the escapement on the early run, big, large fish. And there's a differentiation on there, whether or not they're marking the large fish versus the small ones to try to make sure they identify those accurate. Also discussed a project, even though outside the boundaries of Charisma, was the letter of support will go out supporting the paving of the boat launch at the Kasilof. And though outside of the Kenai River Management Special Area, you know, the opinion. And reality is that the Kasilof is kind of like a shoulder support system that takes some of the heat off the Kenai River. And so that river there and its runs there are just as important in providing the Kenai some relief. Remember a number of years ago when King runs were a little bit sketchy back in I think it was in the 90s, you know, people would bop over and pick up their fish and take them home off the Kasilof and return a lot of King. So some of those area-wide issues that we talk about, whether it's on the upper river or just the peninsula as well, do affect the rivers, and they're not separate in terms of those. So that's some of the topics that have been coming up. Some of the stuff we'll be working forward with the river use committees and those.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Carmichael. Move on to the next item on the agenda, number 10, City Manager's Report.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear you, Mr. Curry.
The library board met, and I'd hope to make a report on that.
Nope, well, you're not on my list, but go ahead.
We did meet. Okay, I don't know anything about your list. It had been over 6 months, so that's probably why it's on your list. We felt we'd been totally ignored forever. It was so nice to get together in this room, and again, we actually got to, you know, introduce ourselves to each other again. It was a wonderful meeting, relatively short. There have been dynamic changes in the way people learn, and particularly in the usage of a library. And so that one of the great things that the Joyce Carver Memorial Soldotna City Library does, because of the staff, because of the people that come in, and because of the librarian, is they're continually working to reach all the different groups. There are some of us, I'll say elders, that we kind of like a printed source that we can hold on to and turn the page. There are others, and I won't say young people, but they are kind of the young people, that they can do it on their cell phone and they can read forever and learn all kinds of good things there. And so our library is striving, and I think doing an excellent job, being open to all the different resource methodologies and all the different ways that people learn. Just coming to one of the library board meetings and listening to the new information that's being processed by the staff, the new ways, again, of delivering services, while at the same time they're very much working to get kids to come in and to love reading and to love that access, as well as all other people. Our community loves that library, and it serves a very large number of people. And so I just want to say it was a very good meeting. The library is aware that they are at the forefront of helping us move, you know, each day into the future, while not giving up on the important things of what have come in the past. And so it's a good meeting. It wasn't a real long one. We won't meet again for 3 months. But again, it was just very good to listen. And it's one of those things, if more people in the city of Soldotna heard all the things that the library is doing, it would be another area where they'd feel just very good about Soldotna and what goes on here and how we try to meet the needs of as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Are there any questions for Mr. Carey? I just have one comment. I happen to be one of those old timers that like to have both a book, but I've also learned to have a Kindle in my hand. It's kind of hard to take 20 books on vacation with you. Kind of overloads the bag real quick. So thank you. Next one is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Just one thing I want to comment on. I want to specifically thank Andrew and his team for the work that they do. And we talk about parks a lot. We talked about it a lot tonight. We often hear about what goes on, and I guarantee you that is a fraction of what they deal with in administering all of our properties, all of our programs. And last weekend was the first home opener for the Brown Bears. And because of COVID and our safety mitigation, that requires a lot more from our team in terms of preparing for those events, supporting the public who comes, supporting the team. And I just want to thank him for stepping up, all of our people stepping up. We are trying some new things. We are partnering, Andrew's partnering with SoHi, sports teams, music groups, StuCo, whoever's interested, and we're working with them as event ambassadors. Last weekend it was the basketball team, and we're using it as a fundraiser for the school, using our COVID money, so that they can be available to help roam the event, hand out free masks, keep it positive and light. They're not enforcing, but they're kind of a friendly presence, and people seem to respond really well to that. So the reports I got back was that that team thought that was a great opportunity. They were glad to do that volunteer work, and it really helped us supplement our workforce in terms of being visible at that event. We're stepping up communication. Of course, you know, we've got the signage and things, but in working this partnership with the Brown Bears, it really requires that Andrew reach out and expect more, demand more from them, and they really stepped up too. So I just want to say thank you. It sounds like it was a good weekend. They got their first win out of it. So we'll continue tackling these challenges as well as other day-to-day duties as they come. And thank you.
Any questions for the city manager? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comments. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak on make any comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Zoom, and I see no hands raised. So next item, council comments. We'll start out with our newest member, Mr. Nelson.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for the warm welcome, and got through the first meeting all right, so that must be a good sign of things to come. So certainly look forward to continuing to work with the council and the administration, and again, appreciate how welcoming and informative the staff and the council members have been. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Knowles.
Well, we did Spirit Week this week for the last 3 days to help morale, and there's been a drastic drop in the amount of vandalism at the school. And the Student Council is hosting a food drive from November 1st to the 23rd.
Thank you. Mr. Chilson.
No comments tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I'd just like to comment that I'm so pleased with what the chamber has done throughout this whole year and through all of COVID, to be honest, and the fact that our sales tax numbers are up. I'm sure it has something to do with some Amazon and some Nordstrom shopping. And Streamwatch, I'm just so pleased with Galen and Kathy and Sally for all the work that they do, and running herd on a lot of volunteers. When you have over 100 people, that is really a huge job. So I'm very pleased with what they have accomplished there. And just everybody have a good night.
Mr. Rufford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we say thanks a lot to our city staff, but specifically tonight I want to applaud our city manager. I appreciate very much your measured and thoughtful approach to difficult issues, and just being a voice of continuity and reason in what has seemed quite different than what we expected things to be over the course of the last 18 months. So I don't think it gets said enough, but I appreciate your approach to all things city government, and I think you take very, very difficult things and think them through very well, and are able to communicate that well to us and to the members of our public. And I think that I just want to say does not go unnoticed. So thank you.
Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak about our body politic a little bit. Obviously, I've spent most of my life teaching government at the college and out in our high schools and other places, and by serving on groups like this. And I want to apologize to those people who are being hassled because they provide volunteer service to our republic. And I particularly want to talk about the election workers. The idea that throughout this country, election workers, again, and the regular everyday people who many for decades have just provided service all day long before elections, the days after elections, are just there because they believe in the United States. They believe in honesty and good government. And to think that those people all over are being harassed. Some states, I heard some stuff from Wisconsin in terms of the percentage that those who have quit, because they just can't handle what's being yelled at them and what's being said to them. I want to apologize to any Soldotna worker that catches flack from any member of the public or anyone who's rude to them, who's inappropriate. I grew up here, and we absolutely had differences of opinion, but definitely people knew that when they finished the discussion, whatever the overall decision was, you still left here friends. And again, we were all one community. We've done some real splitting, and I just know that we need to be kind to each other. For each member of this council, for the mayor, if you've caught any flack, I apologize. That is not what this country is about. That is not what Soldotna is about. And yeah, I have a sense of what we are about. And so I just want to ask all of us to be kinder to each other, to not show up wanting to be rude and obnoxious. I believe in this country, and I believe in elections, and I believe in, again, the volunteers of the community serving in functions in which they volunteer and they serve the rest of us. And I just think it's such an important service of who we are. And again, just anyone who's been defamed or in any way treated inappropriately, at least as one elected official, I just want to apologize to them, because that's not what it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, executive session. There is no reason for one this evening. Item 14 is meeting announcements. November 3rd, 2021, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. November 4th, 2021, Parks and Recreation Memorial Park Plant and Decoration Policy Review at 4:30 p.m. November 4th, 2021, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting at 5:30. And November 10th, 2021, City Council meeting here at 6 p.m. Seeing nothing else on the agenda and no further business before us, we are adjourned.